Start video. Oh,
Do I do? Start video. Where do you click on that? Your mouse is not on mass. I thought that's what all you did, is just click to try to undo that. I wanna do that. Launch meeting. No, you already launched, you're good. Oh. Exit. Oh, good. Oh. Cancel. Cancel. I don't get it. Sometimes it goes right in and sometimes it doesn't. I don't know, man. This is just weird. Start video. Why is it like Johnny? I have to do it over here somewhere? Video settings?
yeah, sure, click on that to see what happens. I don't know, it's not. Yeah, it's easy, I don't know why it's.
HD. Won't even do HD. No. This whole computer is seen most days.
I don't know why it doesn't click. Obviously it's working.
Are we on?
Yeah, we're definitely on.
Is this isn't right, is it?
No, that's right.
Hmm?
That's right.
That's right.
That's, yeah, you're good. They can hear talk and all that. I don't know. What your, well, I don't know what your malfunction is here. But there's definitely one.
It's called Bob.
I agree.
It's Bob. Bob is the malfunction. Right? I can't move that, can I? Whatever you want to. What is that?
Let's see you.
What is going on? Is this broke? It seems like it. There's Julia. Julia. It ain't. Half. No. Oh. Now it's on. I swear to God. That is crazy.
Alright, so it had something to do with that window being open. It was one to put on the other window.
Can I move this bar?
Wherever you want to do it. Yeah. Grab it. There you go.
Okay.
Cool.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Bob, you're so welcome.
Yeah.
I love you.
Bob, you are so welcome. Julia. How are you?
Right.
Julia, can you hear me?
wants 6,500. 65. We like. I am fine. This can go over. Our hospitals and 83,000 miles. Lord, sport path, and he's a nice artist. It's risky, never been in an accident. I'll ask, my guy, you see a community group, or he knows somebody at down. Because somebody might. Okay. I reached out to the hard guys, yeah, it is, yes. The express, I don't know about express, you also events and ask him if he comes anybody. Yeah. Because I don't know, yeah. Yeah. The thing about color is that charcoal gray. Instead of lighter gray leather. Just retired and buy it out of my own yard. Really buy it, rain, one number, all the service, all you can garage. It's honestly not about the land stuff. You know, there are space. You get a cool car to have over the weekend. Oh, what are you doing? Are you what kind of engine to put out? Sure, it's B6. Not terrible. It's nice and awesome, but it's the pristine car. Yeah. That, you know, people got that 37 miles a year, you never really go. Period. Yeah. So, they drove us to the restaurant and back. Yeah. That's not bad. Yeah.
Julia, can you hear me?
Oh.
Can you hear me? Julia? Is that any better?
It is. Yeah.
Is that better?
Yes.
Good. I'll turn it up a little more. I guess it's just gonna be you. We'll wait maybe another minute or two. Is that okay?
Yeah, totally.
Oh, we have another one. Lynette joined us.
Hi,
Good morning.
good morning, Bob.
How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing fine. I'm doing fine. Can you guys see the screen okay?
Yes,
What I'm sharing?
yes,
Good. Have either of you done a buyer agency with anybody?
yes.
I
You
haven't.
have- You haven't yet, Julia?
No.
Okay. Hi Eve, how are you?
I'm
Yeah.
doing great. Thank you. Sorry, took me a minute to find the link.
I was just asking the others, have you done a buyer agency with anybody?
I have not.
Okay. So Lynette, you have, and Juliet and Eve, you have not, correct?
Correct.
Correct.
Yes.
Well, there you are. We have somebody joining us who hasn't been here for quite a while. Good to see you. How are you doing?
Doing okay.
Doing okay?
Yeah.
Good. She was in a little bit of a motorcycle accident, what, 3-4 months ago?
Yeah, April.
April? Beautiful. Time has gone by.
Yeah.
So. One thing to note, when you're doing either a buyer agency or you're gonna list a house. And you're going to have a seller as your client. You have the form, the buyer advisory. And you have the form seller advisory. Right? Before you go on the market with a listing, or before you show a single house to a buyer. You have to have this buyer advisory and the exclusive right to buy listing contract signed. No exceptions, it's gotta be signed. And especially now in this weird market that we have entered into. We wanna make sure that buyers, especially right now, are aware of what the consequences are. Of going under contract, what to expect. And please be sure, guys, that they read these. It's been my experience in all these years that most people don't read much of anything. Even agents don't read listings, if you can imagine that. So when you have a buyer. make sure you take the time. It's probably, if you really take the time to fill out an exclusive right to buy listing agreement and a buyer advisory, it's gonna take a good 2 hours to go over it with them. Easily. Okay? Don't just send it over to them and go, hey guys, read through this, and then I'll be able to work with you. Go over it with them if you can. If for some reason they can't, then at least send it to them and then go over the highlights of it. But it's much better if you can sit down with them and go through each section. Okay? Of course, not every section applies, but even the buyer advisory has things in it that we don't have to worry about. But Damien has provided this form and Kevin wants it used every single time because it could help alleviate lawsuits. Okay? Has anybody been through this very much? No? No, Eden? Lynette? Ryan? Hi, thanks for joining, Ryan.
Is-
Go ahead.
Hey, Bob.
Hey there.
I'm-
Lynette? I'm not, I don't hear anything if you're trying to talk to me. Okay, well, you guys, you want to read through these forms. Now, tomorrow, Kevin is doing a free class on contracts. Let me check and see. I'm not sure if it's listing or buyer. I'm not sure, but it's free. You need to attend these classes, especially for contracts. You need to be up to speed and understand these, because it's very important. Again, this market has shifted, it's different, and buyers are kind of have an upper hand now. So they're trying to get the best deal they can, which as you're their agent, you're trying to get them the best deal you can get them, right?
Bob,
Yes,
it's a buyer listing agreement for Kevin's class tomorrow.
it's a buyer's listing, good.
Yeah.
So it'll go in conjunction with this buyer advisory, okay?
Yes.
All right, so that's good. It's a very important aspect of it. So we won't worry about the listing agreement. But just get the highlights of this buyer advisory. So it says on here, there are certain aspects and risks associated with purchasing residential property. Well, people, sometimes they don't want to hear that kind of thing. Like, I just want a house. I don't care if there's risk or not, or, oh my God, what kind of risks are there? Well, there's all kinds of things out there to try to throw them off plane a little bit. So really, really get familiar with this. Under Colorado law, you see here, neither the broker nor the brokerage firm have any obligation to investigate on behalf of buyer. Buyer is advised as follows, okay? So, now does that mean when I go show a property, I'm not trying to look at maybe details of anything about the house? If I notice the roofing looks poor, or there's some structural issues, or the grading around the home. I'm not doing an investigation, I'm just notating that there are some issues. And I'm pointing those out when we go look, okay? There's nothing wrong with that. If they say, wow, does that mean we have structural issues? I'm not sure, we will do it, if this is the house you go forward with, then we will get if we have to, we'll get a structural engineer, but the inspector should be able to tell what's going on, right? So, just read through these numerous times, because this buyer advisory form is really good. And so is the seller advisory. So A, contract review. Under Colorado law, broker is permitted to prepare the real estate commission approved contracts. Additionally, there are several contract forms such as a HUD, bank owned or builder contracts that are not approved by the Colorado Real Estate Commission that broker may also participate. When you sell a new home, all builders have I haven't run across a builder lately that has any kind of doesn't have their own form. They don't just say, go ahead and bring us a contract on the Colorado residential form. They all have their forms. Hi, Casey. Buyer is encouraged to review all contracts carefully and to have all contracts reviewed by buyer's attorney. Okay? We all kind of go through the contracts when we see it that says, you know, you have the right to have your attorney or your tax person look at this before you sign it. We all kind of skim over that because we all think, you don't need that. We've got this habit. You need to offer that and to make sure they understand that there are a lot of things in the contract that can go sideways. Hopefully it doesn't, but they can. Okay. But always make sure you highlight that and offer it. Do you need to talk to an attorney before we go forward? Contingencies. While the commission approved contracts cover a wide variety of contingencies and terms, buyer's situation may require additional contingencies. If buyer believes buyer needs additional contingency, buyer needs to send this request to the broker in writing prior to entering into this contract. Okay. So see, this already gets questions opened up by going over the buyer advisory in detail. And I like to send my paperwork ahead of time so people can read through it. And then try to either sit down with them or get on the computer with them and go over it. And just say, do you understand this section? And so on. That's why it can take 2 to 3 hours to fill out all the paperwork just for a buyer. And I'm not talking about the purchase contract. I'm just talking about the listing contract and the advisory. Earnest money disputes. Do we have any of those? Yes, we do. We have 1 or 2 in our office right now. And the buyer has withdrawn. It's not our buyer, it's our seller, but the buyer has terminated within the guidelines, dates and deadline time to get out of the contract. And the seller is saying, well, I'm not going to give him back the earnest money. I'm going to get an attorney. They need to understand that these things can happen. Even if you do everything above board, everything within the deadlines and dates, sometimes sellers feel like I've been wronged. I'm not going to give them their earnest money back. I'll go to court, blah, blah, blah. The contract is very specific. If you are within the dates and deadlines of the contract and you terminate for any of the reasons like loan conditions deadline is, if you can't get a loan, you can terminate as long as it's by the date. You can't get out of it after that date. But sometimes sellers will say, I don't want their money, or maybe they give me $1,000, whatever. That's all negotiable. But earnest money disputes happen quite often. Casey, have you had an earnest money dispute?
Yes, I have.
Yeah. I think we've all had.
It's not fun. It's not fun.
But you're gonna probably have them. Okay, but read through this section and become familiar with that.
Bob, I was going to mention something. I do some role play stuff with some folks in California, and they've never used the buyer broker commission agreement. Like they don't even get the buyer listing agreement signed right away.
Right.
And so a lot of the stuff that we talk about, I mean, we're a year into this, right? And they still are having difficulty explaining that to their buyers and getting their buyers on board.
We were one of the first states to implement buyer agency.
Yeah, it's clear. It's clear because and New York doesn't do it because they have attorneys, so they don't use those same forms.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. In some states like Missouri, they even allow dual agency, meaning you can be an agent for the buyer and you can be an agent for the seller, not a transaction broker, an actual agent. How?
Yeah, and they do that in California too. You can do that in California too.
Okay.
That sounds dangerous to me.
It's really dangerous. it's dangerous. Being a transaction broker is not easy, but it's you can navigate through it much better than being an agent for both parties. Obtaining a loan. There are many different types of lenders and loans, each offering different interest rates, terms, costs. Buyers encouraged to shop around. We all have a tendency to do what? I have a preferred lender. Let me introduce you to them. That's okay, but make sure you introduce them to a few people, or say, do you have somebody that you're thinking about? Yeah, we have a son-in-law who does loans. Great, who with? Wells Fargo. No, not so great. I'm just saying that because it's gonna be very difficult to get loans through because they have overlays with their loans, and a lot of times you'll get down to the brass tacks of trying to get everything formatted for closing, and they'll come up with a plethora of different overlays that say, well, the buyer needs to give us this, they need this, and before you know it, they've got a book full of things that they have to put together before they can get approved. So we've got a great lender in the office, but meet others too, and have some lenders that you can refer them to, and or find out, do they have a lender? Are they pre-approved? Okay, can't just guide them to people, right? Any questions on that?
No.
Assumptions and seller carry financing. This is something you rarely ever see, so I'm not really gonna go much into it, but we used to have non-qualifying assumptions where a buyer could buy somebody's house. They didn't have to qualify. All that they would say is maybe the house had $30,000 of equity. They could take over the loan without qualifying and start paying on it. They didn't even have to qualify with the lender. Well, nowadays, people have so much equity in their house, those non-qualifying assumptions are really not out there. So that doesn't matter. Seller carrying financing is, and a lot of times you'll see that on higher end properties, ranches, that kind of thing. Next one, wire fraud. This explains it very well. Emails for parties in a transaction have come under attack, which could lead to a buyer inadvertently wiring funds to a hacker. Anytime buyers is supplying confidential information such as social security numbers or bank account information, buyers should provide the information in person instead of by email. So I always tell people at this part, I will never, ever, never, ever, ever, never, ever, ever email you and ask you for your information for your bank or anything, ever. And neither will the title company. They're never going to just inadvertently send this email that says, oh, hey, Frank, we got a closing in a week. Can you give us your social security number and your wiring instructions? No. Make sure you tell your people, do not. Anymore, title companies are very, very specific about sending security emails and or showing up in person. That's one nice thing about having land title here. If you're doing a deal with them, you can have your buyers come in and give them the information in person, and you don't have to worry about it. Okay? Buyer inspections. This is the one that is really becoming a difficult thing to navigate through in this market, because for many years, especially 2020, 21, 22, and some of 23, the sellers have the upper hand in the marketplace. And if you wrote an offer and you were one of 7 offers, oftentimes sellers said, we're going to sell it as is. We're not going to do anything. By the way, we want 50,000 over list, and by the way, we want to rent that for 60 days for free. And what would buyers do? They would do it because they wanted the home. Right? Now, that's completely changed in many areas. Not all areas, but a lot of that has changed. Right? Buyer inspections of a property are an important part. Don't ever tell your people, oh, that house looks great, you don't need to do an inspection. No, you need to do inspections, those things you can't see. Can you tell what a sewer line looks like from the outside of the house? No. Can you really tell what the roofing looks like? Can you tell about the electrical? Can you tell about drainage very well? You can kind of get an idea, but you don't know a lot of this stuff. You always want to get an inspection. You want to make sure you tell them you want to get a radon test. Radon is, tasteless, odorless gas that it's the second leading cause of cancer, lung cancer in the nation. It's something that has really come to the forefront in the last, especially 3 years, I'd say. And now it's in the contract and it's much more upfront. I don't think I've sold a house in the last 3 years without anybody getting a radon test. And oftentimes, if they're a little bit on the edge of the limits, what they can afford with the home inspection and maybe a sewer inspection, I may pay for a radon test form. Radon tests are typically $150, okay? But it's something I want them to know. The seller may not repair it, they may not mitigate it. However, now they probably will, but in a hot market, sellers would say, you want it fixed, you get it fixed. We've lived here, we didn't care about it, we're moving, we're not gonna fix it. Now things are a little different. Home inspections, there are several types of inspectors that specialize in different areas of the property. For example, structural engineers, which if you guys ever run across something and you need somebody, let me know, because I have a very good structural engineer. Geotechnical engineers, roofers, plumbers, sewer line inspection, all kinds of things, okay? The good inspectors are ASHI, and you see this home inspector or International Association of Certified Home Inspectors, which is INTRANASHI. Buyers strongly encouraged at a minimum to hire a professional. Have any of you, Casey, have you ever had a buyer that didn't want to do an inspection?
Yes, I have. We had one at Windsor Gardens. And they just were like, we're good. We're gonna redo everything anyway.
We're gonna redo it. The association takes care of the roofing.
Yeah.
Of the whole building. The plumbing, you can look at that and decide, it's not leaking right now. The appliances, you can turn them on yourself. See if they're working. You don't know really about the furnace, what kind of condition it's in. But if you're assuming you're gonna do everything, you may not want to pay for it, or you may just have a limited inspection where all that you do is maybe you get an HVAC person to come out and check the furnace and the AC unit. Or you get the sewer line scoped or whatever, but.
I think the main thing is the electrical box is usually one thing that, and I have an electrician that will come out and do that, but it's not an inspection, but at least they'll know.
Right. So, anytime if you guys ever want to go on an inspection with me, I'll be glad to let you come along. I just have to clear it with my clients first that, we're just kind of doing some in-house training and would like to have the ability to bring an agent, maybe up to 2 agents along to just check it out and see what it's about.
I would, Bob.
Okay. I'll let you know. I don't have any buyer. Let's see. I don't have any buyers right now that are in the process of getting an inspection. But when I do, I will reach out to you and let you know.
Yeah.
If you want to go, when I look at houses to list, I also should be able to take 1 or 2 of you along to just not necessarily to do the listing, but look through the house, talk to the seller, get an idea of what the house, is looking like. If I suggest anything, I'll just let you guys know right now, I always pay, and I'm not saying you guys need to do this, but this is something that I've found beneficial. I always pay to have my roofer look at the roofing, check it out, give us a report on it, and I will pay to have it certified if the roofing is in good shape for myself. I pay to have the sewer line scoped. Right?
Yeah.
I will pay to have the furnace HVAC person come out and check the furnace and the AC unit. And I'll also have them just look at the hot water heater. There's not, you can look at age, you can kind of tell some things, maybe, if maybe some plumbing is not done correct, we know about it up front. Just to give you an example, I just closed on a house last week in Brighton. And the agent didn't have anything checked. Well, we ended up having new roofing that we got. We had the sewer line cleaned and a minor repair. We have the electrical panel, we got $5,500 credit for having the electrical panel moved. And a new one put in because the electrical panel, they had covered in the kitchen, it was a 1955 house. And they had put kitchen cabinets over the interior panel. That's a big no-no. You have to have full access to the panel. And you know, in older homes, the panel is fairly small, but you can't have it hiding behind a cabinet. And there was some plumbing that was incorrect on the furnace and the hot water heater, which they corrected. Had they done some of that due diligence up front and had some inspections, it would have been a lot less of a shock to the seller that they had to have all of these items done. Fortunately for my veteran, they did them all without really arguing about anything. I guess they probably knew they had maybe neglected on some things and things needed to be done. But I don't like it when I list a house that when the buyer's inspector comes and they start going, well, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong. We had the sewer line checked and it's broken and it's gonna need replaced and so on and so forth. There's always gonna be things that pop up that you can't test for everything, but if you test for the bigger items, it makes your deals a whole lot smoother. A whole lot smoother. I had a house last year up in Longmont where the people, and not everybody does, but they tested for mold. Well, the mold came back high because of the dander from the dogs, because there had been 2 dogs in the house, and they bought this house brand new in 1965. They used to have 2 dogs almost for 30 years in that house. We never had the ducting cleaned, ever.
Oh my gosh.
House looked nice. Didn't have a bad odor to it, but the mold was highly elevated. And it was due to the ducting and the carpeting. The carpeting was gonna be torn out anyway because there was hardwoods underneath. And it cost about $600 to have all the ducting cleaned out. And you could not imagine the amount of dirt and dust and dander that came out of this 1,500 square foot toilet. It was unbelievable. It was in, I think there was 8 large, I'm not talking, 55 gallon, I'm talking large, like you could put a body in, that filled up from the ducting. And then we had to have it retested, and it was all good. Okay. So just know that that kind of thing does happen. And you can see they're talking about some of that mine tailings up in the foothills, pet urine and or dander, mold. I had another house last year that I sold right over here on the other side of Wadsworth, and had the test done, the inspection done. Was my listing, and lo and behold, it came back positive for meth. Now, I don't think it was my people. It could have possibly been one of their kids, but they pinned it down to that at one point, somebody smoked meth in the kitchen. Well, they had to have that mitigated, they had to have the furnace mitigated, they had to have the ducting mitigated, and a couple other places were tested, And it ended up being a $25,000 fix that they weren't expecting. Right? So, there's things that pop up. You never are 100% sure about anything.
So
Right?
just someone smoking meth in a house can get it. It can get detected. Even. Wow.
Like the Breaking Bad series, it can be one time. The common is somebody goes in the bathroom and lights up something. And it's,
Oh my God.
you do it, it's in there. So it can be very expensive. I talked to the industrial hygienist who, the people that do the testing are these industrial hygienists, which is kind of an odd name. You don't think of it. Industrial hygienist is testing for meth in a house, but that's what they do. And they had a house the previous year that was $1.5 million, and they had $450,000 of mitigation to mitigate the meth. It was almost to the point where they needed to just tear the house down, but they were able to clean it up. So don't think that it's only your $250,000 house out in Commerce City that could have meth. It can be anywhere. And meth is not typically a poor person's medication, right? So just be aware that there are things out there that can come up and be a surprise to you. Right? Square footage. This is another one when you obviously the listing agent provides square footage. The square footage disclosure says where they got the square footage from. They're typically going to get it from either a prior appraisal or you're going to get it from the public records. If it's not a ranch style house with a basement, like if it's a tri-level with different levels, and don't try to measure it yourself. Get it, if you want to, hire an appraiser and have them go out and measure it. If there's any discrepancy in the feeling that, hey, I think this house might be larger or smaller, doesn't matter. Get somebody to measure. They even have that, I think the name of that app is CASA. Casey, do you know that's that one that's on RE Colorado? And you can supposedly go into the house with your cell phone and walk through the rooms and it's measuring and it will give you square footage.
They do, and you can take, they got some videos on how to do it.
Okay.
If you go to RE Colorado, they have free training right there on it. And for smaller houses, it's great. I haven't done it yet, but I've done my own measuring of smaller houses just because they've added something. But yeah, the videos are right there on RE Colorado.
The main thing is the disclosure is just disclosing what the square footage is and what source you got it from. That's it. Now, your buyer, you may ask your buyer, are you comfortable with this? Do you want to get an appraiser or somebody to come and measure the house to make sure you're getting the square footage?
Oh God.
I've had a few buyers say, yeah, I think we would like to get it measured and make sure. But who's gonna measure it for them if they're getting a loan? The appraiser that they're hiring. Okay, because appraisers are typically gonna measure the house. If they're a cash buyer, nobody's gonna measure it. You're just going by public records, what they show or what the previous appraisal showed when maybe the homeowner had a loan. So it's just be careful about square footage. Square footage is one of the biggest lawsuits that we have in Colorado as far as between agents and buyers. Okay.
A friend of mine just had a closing, and their measurement was off by 14 square feet, and they based everything off the square feet, and they ended up paying $5,000 extra at closing. The sellers are getting $5,000 because they were off. I don't know. They were off by 14 square feet, and they literally took it literally.
14 square feet.
14 square feet. Yep. It was that big of a deal. It was like $5,000 that the seller had to give back.
Wow. Okay.
I
There
don't
you
know.
have it.
I don't know. She just told me the story, but I'm like, that's not very much. And she goes, oh, it's $5,000 worth. And I was like, oh, geez. Okay.
That wouldn't have happened 2 or 3 years ago in a hot market. People would have been like, I don't care what the square footage is, I want a house.
Yeah, exactly. Now they're measuring to the point of the appraiser came back and said, you're off by 14 square feet.
How about that closet? Is that closet really 3 by 5? You're gonna
No,
see
it's 2 by 3. We just rounded up.
right? Okay, anybody have questions on home inspections? Nope, okay. And there are good companies out there too that, for like radon, there's one company, I can't think of the top of my head, but they pretty much are $12.95 for realtor clients to mitigate unless the house has crawl space. Because if it has a crawl space, they have to lay plastic, they have to seal it in there, so it costs more. But if it's a normal house with a basement and they can do the normal job on it, it's, I think it's either $12.45 or $12.95. They do give a discount if we refer as an agent to the client. And it's Rapid Radon is the company. I got that from Jordan Kessler. And they've been very, very good. They go when they're supposed to, they get it done. And they're all gonna be somewhat similar in costs. But what I like about these guys is they're very clean, they're very proactive in getting everything done, and they guarantee in writing that they put the system in, that they will retest it about 2 weeks after it's been installed. You used to see that a lot of people said, well, I want it tested and before closing. Well, sometimes you can't get it tested before closing. And what this company does is they actually give in writing, hey, we will cover and guarantee that if it comes back above 3.9, then we will come back and figure it out and we will fix it and get it down to under 3.9, period. So you don't have to worry about it, okay? Septic, if you guys write on a property or list a property that has septic and or well, please reach out to myself, to Kevin, to Charles. They're different animals and you need to be aware of things that you want to have in your contract or have done. If you're listing a property that has septic, you want the county to go ahead and get a septic inspection done. And I think typically most counties, that inspection lasts for, I think 90 days in some and six months on others. I think Jefferson County is 6 months. So it's not something, if you have a property that's gonna take 2 years to sell, that maybe you wanna run out and get done, but it's up to the seller to pay for a septic inspection and certification. And then a well is also going to be some tests done and potability to make sure it's in good, good water, that it's not a problem. And a lot of times sellers will just go ahead and get that done and have it ready for a prospective buyer. But if you go to show a property with a well and septic, just reach out, okay? Remodeling. There's a word that comes to mind when I see that word, remodeling. Flippers or fix and flips. Fix and flips are a nightmare waiting to happen, in that I would say 90% of the flippers out there don't care about the quality or pulling permits or doing what is necessarily correct. Okay, and I'm being totally candid on this because I used to work with my partner and we had an investor that did flips, And in 3 years, we did 75 with him. And he started out very good. He did everything by the book. Then as the market got hotter and hotter, he would do less and less. And it got to the point where we said, we're not gonna work with you anymore. Because he was cutting corners, he quit pulling permits, and he would only get a permit if the buyer asked for it. And then he would try to fight him on that. So most flippers do not do everything they're supposed to. They make the house look pretty, but underneath, you never know what's up. Okay. Remind me, and I'll show you a house that I sold early last year that the flipper who got it said, oh, we pull permits, we do everything right. Well, the house sold, they fixed it up, absolutely beautiful. Sold it, and 3 months after they sold it, the buyer started having problems. And there had been some issues with structural, which I had a structural engineer do a full report on it that we gave to the flipper. And they didn't do any of the work. And now it's a lawsuit. Because the people who bought it are selling it. I'm not sure if it ever went under contract yet, but they have disclosed everything about it that they have, and they are getting out of it. So be careful if you show those fix-ups. They can be a problem. Insects, parasites, as you probably heard, the VA is now requiring it, that veterans have to get a termite inspection or any kind of wood-boring animal or critter. They have to have them in every county except Adams and Jefferson County, which I don't know why, but they don't. Wild animals, yep, we do have wild animals, and you want to disclose that if you have somebody up in the foothills and they know they got a mountain lion that hangs around, disclose it. You know, most people who want to live up in there, they don't care. That's why they're getting away from the city. Building permits and zoning, sometimes the property may be for sale, but have building code, zoning, or other violations. Always try to make sure you guys that you ask questions and ask more questions and make sure that everything you can possibly know about the property before you put it on the market. Okay?
Bob, I have a question.
Absolutely.
If you don't pull permits, is it harder to add that value on your property if you don't have proof of that?
Say that again.
Is it harder if you don't pull permits to add the value of those things that you like repairs or improvements you made if you don't have permits that you've pulled? Like I've heard that before.
You can sometimes if like, it's very common, if you're showing houses and you look at the public records and the public records show unfinished basement,
Mm-hmm.
the thing says it's finished. There's a
Yeah.
good chance that the owner finished it themselves, right? And they didn't pull any permits. So sellers can go down to the city and oftentimes get basically an aftermarket permit and get it taken care of. But yeah, it can be a tough situation, and it can cause the property to be worth less because you don't know especially if they finish it and they put in electrical and plumbing and they did the work and they're not licensed and they don't know what they're doing, even worse.
Yeah.
And that happens with a lot of fix and flips. They just do the work. They'll buy houses that have structural problems and they'll cover it up with sheetrock. And they don't disclose it. So it's something that you have to be aware of. And you know, and that's why it's so critical to get an inspection. Have any of this, Casey, I know that most of you haven't told me, but Casey, have you had a property where your buyers walked away from it because they found out there was probably issues that weren't disclosed?
Um, no, not that serious. No, everybody's either fixed it or provided us,
Yeah.
money, whatever. But no, we've never walked away from that,
I've had a
except for that
couple-
house in Wonderful Hills or whatever it is over there,
Yeah.
because the mold was terrible and the foundation wasn't great. So we walked away after inspection. But that was a bad day.
And sometimes you just need it one way.
Yeah, it was not a good situation. What was that? Friendly Hills? Is that what it's called?
Hey.
Yeah.
If you ever at an inspection and you have some questions, don't hesitate to reach out to me and give me a call. Okay. Stigmatized property under Colorado law, facts or suspicions regarding circumstances that could psychologically impact or stigmatize a property. May material facts that require disclosure. Now, in Colorado, you don't disclose if they don't want to, if there's been a suicide in the house. Well, the old bunt cake theory is if somebody buys a house and if there's been a fire or there's been any kind of murder or suicide, what's the neighbor gonna do? As soon as closing occurs, they're gonna come over with the bunt cake and say, did you realize that old man Jones took his own life in this house? Well, so I think it's better, you have a serious sit down talk with your clients and say, realistically, people are gonna find this out. So I had a house in Elizabeth years ago that was a good friend's dad had killed himself in the house. And we decided the best thing to do was disclose it up front. And that way we didn't have this occur. And the gentleman and his wife who bought the property was actually a retired Jefferson County sheriff. And he said, oh, that's fine. I already knew about it. I already pulled up the public records on it. So, but we didn't have to disclose it. Okay. So just be aware. Other matters, in addition to the above, there are many other matters that may affect buyers' use and enjoyment of a property. Such other matters may include, but are not limited to, encroachments onto a property, existing or proposed transportation projects. Sex offenders is a big one that, man, they're everywhere. If you don't think so, there are sites that you can go onto and find out, and they are all over the place. So noise problems, there's any kind of things, just don't hesitate to, if you show out somebody's interested, take them back at rush hour, if it's kind of close to some major roads. And make sure they understand that there are some noises, it's not as quiet all the time. Or go back in the evening time just to see the neighborhood, go knock on doors. And meet some neighbors, right? There's nothing bad about that. Inspections of foreclosure, short sales, and bank owned. If a buyer is purchasing a property foreclosure or short sale or bank owned, the buyer may be purchasing distressed property. They are going to be. Every foreclosure I've ever seen has been distressed. Many times these types of properties are vacant and or the sellers are unaware of major problems. That when they're bank owned, the bank, they don't care. They just, we've got what? You either buy it or you don't buy it. We're gonna sell it as is. A lot of times on bank-owned foreclosures, you have to pay to have the water turned on. So you can have an inspection and then pay to have it turned off. They're very much buy it as is. Fortunately, we don't have a lot. We are seeing a little bit of an increase, not a huge increase down in Colorado Springs. One of our agents who's been down there recently this year has seen a pretty large uptick in short sales. Colorado Springs is a little different because you've got a lot of military, a lot of people get orders that they have to move out of state and they have to go. And as you know, the market on attached homes like condos and townhomes is dramatically slowed down. And so the prices have come down and you are seeing short sales on quite a few of those. Okay, Any questions on? Good. On surveys, the lot size represented in MLS may or may not be right, correct? Now, if it's an older subdivision and there's fences and they've been around for 50 years, there, you probably have adverse possession where, fence line has been there for years and years, and that's the property line. If somebody wants to get a survey done and they find out it's encroaching on the property that they're buying, or they're encroaching on the property next door, then it can bring up some issues, but always let people know, you can certainly have a survey done. Now, the term you're gonna hear a lot of is improvement location certificate. When I first got in business over 30 years ago, you had to have every deal you did, the buyer had to pay for an improvement location certificate to give to the title company, so they knew that in fact, they were buying the property that was advertised and had that legal description. An improvement location certificate is not what's used, or you see it's called an ILC, is not what's used for a fence. It's used to denote that that's the legal description and that's the house for that property. Or that's the lot for that property. If you want to get a fence line done, then you have to have an improvement survey and plat, which is much more expensive. An ILC is probably $300 to $500. An ISP is more like, probably for an average lot, $3,000. And sometimes can take a month or two to get them. It's according what time of year. Okay, but those are things that you need to be aware of. What is an ILC? What is an ISP? Short sales, if you guys show a short sale or are thinking of showing a short sale or have somebody who needs to list a house as a short sale, reach out to me. Insurance. Has insurance changed over the past couple of years with all the fires and hail and, oh my gosh. It's really changing the market, and I think that's part of what's changed our condominium townhome market is insurance prices have gone up, so your HOA fees have gone up. But every house has a clue report, which gives details about claims that have been filed against the property in the past several years. It's more or less a credit report on the house. So, whoop, battery's running low. It ran out. Well, hold on, guys. Get it started back up. We're almost done. There. Don't go away. Sorry about that. So, insurance is just, it's causing a problem up in the foothills. There have been houses where they have said, we're not insuring this anymore. We're not gonna insure this area. We're not gonna insure your house. Fortunately, most people have been able to find insurance with somebody else, but there are issues happening because of this. Now, do I need to sign back in? Restore. We still don't. I think I lost them. So. Watch meeting. Join. I'm back. All right, sorry about that, guys. Can you hear me okay? Can you guys hear me? Uh-oh.
Yes.
Okay, good. Thank goodness. All right, we'll go back. So insurance has really become a big problem, and it is making the prices go up on HOAs, on homes. Insurance is tough, and don't kid yourself that people are not going to have problems with this you know, especially if they're just making it by, and now they're all of a sudden their HOA goes up 120 a month or whatever that might be. It used to be years ago that insurance was probably 250 average a month. Now you're probably starting to see that insurance is, or HOA fees, I should say, are more like 400 a month on average. I've got a place up in Greeley, and they're 425. Yes, it takes care of all the building, it takes care of all the maintenance on the grounds and mowing and all that. But 425 is a lot of money, right? But if you see HOAs that are only charging 200, a lot of times they aren't charging enough. Title review, this is title review and HOA documents. This is the one that I really want to make sure you guys know. Title review, buyer will receive a title commitment after signing the contract and before closing, right? The title commitment is the basis for the buyer's title insurance policy buyer will receive. The title insurance policy is a critical legal document that often includes information about buyer's ownership rights to the property, to include restrictive covenants. Buyer is strongly encouraged to review all the title documents and to have title documents reviewed by a buyer's attorney before applicable deadlines. Buyer understands that broker, that's us, is prohibited from giving an opinion on title documents. Did you hear that? Broker is prohibited. We don't give any kind of advice on title work. Have them call the title company, have them get a hold of an attorney, whatever. But there are consequences, and most people get their title work and go, looks okay. Next. Well, make sure that they at least read through them, and if they have questions, we'll get answers for them from the title company, or they may need to reach out to an attorney. So the house I just told you about that I sold in Brighton that we got all the repairs for, her son is a large investor in California and a real estate attorney. And he saw the title work and did not like what he saw about the mineral rights. And so he raised up some questions. The title company did not want to do anything about it. So I got Damien involved. Damien got him in touch with the vice president of the title company, and they changed the title work to his liking. So just because the title company says, no, we're not going to change it, that doesn't mean it's going to be that way. That doesn't mean that things can't change. So make sure that your people review their title work. It's very important. And again, most people don't like to read all of that. It's a lot of paper. It's a lot to read. And the same with HOA documents. But make sure they read through their HOA documents. It's so important. Okay. Special taxing districts, you definitely want to do that. Have them read through those things, and special taxing districts are high. Water and mineral rights, hey, they're out there, and there are houses on areas that have mineral rights that you wouldn't even think they do. So if you have something come up, reach out to me. Personal property, it explains personal property in depth. Surveillance, almost every house you show anymore now has cameras and all kinds of different things. Seller possession after closing, this spells it out in here. Make sure they read this. FIRPTA, Foreign Investor of Real Estate Property Tax Act. You want to make sure your seller, if you're working with a seller, is not a foreign investor. If there is, there can be tax consequences that have to be paid at closing. Property taxes are paid in arrears. Everybody understand that in Colorado. This year's taxes are paid next year. They're paid in February and April, I believe it is. So be aware of those things. Your seller is gonna get a credit with whatever they have in their escrow account. And your buyer is going to get a credit from the seller when they close for that year's taxes that have been used by the seller. So just sit with a lender and get used to all of this information. Property value. This is where you gotta learn how to do your due diligence and provide CMAs or understand how to figure out the value of a property. Recommendation of professionals, again, don't just say, hey, you gotta use this, the mortgage lender, he's the best. You can certainly encourage them that you've had great luck with them and get them to talk to him or her and see if that's a fit for them. But don't be worried if they find somebody else. They have to have the right to choose on their own. Transaction coordinators. I use a transaction coordinator. I think a lot of us do that do any business. It just takes a lot of stress off you. And it, my transaction coordinator keeps me updated. He developed his own system that every morning it emails me and it says, this is due today, this is due today, this is due tomorrow, it just keeps me in line. And he calls me too and says, hey, did you receive the earnest money? Received. No, I didn't. Okay, let me reach out. So highly recommend using the services of a transaction coordinator. It's $250 or so of money, extremely well paid and spent. Amendment to the buyer listing contract. If buyer signed an exclusive right to buy a listing contract with broker and brokerage firm, this buyer advisory amends said buyer listing contract, and in the event of the dispute, all parties agree to pay their respective attorney fees and costs. So this buyer advisory becomes an attachment to the exclusive right to buy a listing contract. Okay? It's going to be binding right there. Now, I know this wasn't an exciting class. We didn't look at houses. We didn't go tour things. I'm not gonna have time to show you that house I was talking about, but I'd be glad to next time, or if you're in the office, I'll be glad to show you the house. And the one that we sold as is, the flipper bot did not do all the repairs, and now it's on the market again because of all the problems they're having. So, any questions that people have? Nope. Go out and sell something today. All right. Enjoy. Call with questions anytime. I'm here for you.
Thank you,
All right.
Bob.
Thank you.
Be safe.
Thank you.
Absolutely. So you're back at it,
Yeah,
kind of?
yeah. Trying.
Oh, he looks sore. Ooh.
It's like still a little stiff, but I've been bending it, so
Did you get hit on that side? Is it?
yeah. They hit me on the left side. And I was going through the intersection, and it turned into my bike.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
It
Thank
shattered my,
God you made it through. I mean, it could have been much worse, huh?
yeah, it shattered my kneecap. And broke my ankle, like fractured my ankle. This was dislocated, it had a fracture in it, fractured my knuckle. And this is dislocated.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
Oh, Lord.
But at least I didn't.
Oh, I'm glad you're back and you take care. Let us know if you have any questions or need any help.
Can you send me
Okay.
a copy of those advisors?
The advisory? Oh, I'll print you out one.
Okay.
This will have my clients' names on it,
Oh,
but it doesn't matter. It just, all it is the advisory with their signature. So it's not a big deal. Let's print that. There we go. There we go. It should print more there.
okay.
Okay,
Thank you.
well, feel better.
I will, I got physical therapy.
Gonna take you a little bit to get back into the swing of things, I'm sure.
Yeah. but I've come a long way since before. Like I couldn't even stand up.
We're here anytime,
Thank you.
all right? Talk to you soon.
Okay,
If it didn't print, let me know, but I think I heard it print.
well, thank you.